Hey, this is Notser, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Goliath. This is the Tier 10 British heavy cruiser. It is a work-in-progress ship. The stats are not final, they could change at any minute, and in fact, the reload has already gotten a nerf in the form of a 2-second adjustment, so that may or may not come to the game files in the next couple of days. I'm not quite sure where it's coming from, but based on the game damage per minute, you'll understand why the reload may or may not need to be nerfed. But the build is on the screen, and you'll notice something interesting about the build. We have IFHE on a heavy cruiser. Notser, are you trying to recreate your Des Moines fiasco 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Well, no. But one thing that's interesting about this gun caliber, it is 234 at tier 10. That is perfectly placed to be elevated by IFHE from 38 millimeters of pen to 50 millimeters of pen. And 50 millimeters is a significant threshold to reach. I mean, a lot of battleships have deck armor, or even some cruisers have armor that is 50 millimeters, and this crossing that threshold makes it scarier against those types of targets. Is it the best build possible? I have no idea. This was the only game I've ever played in it, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. Now, what other traits are there? Well, it's 12 234mm guns on 4 gun turrets, so 50 in the front, 50 in the rear. You'll end up showing your side if you want to use all 12 of your guns. It's just like something like the Buffalo or even the Italian cruisers, where you really have to put yourself out there. It does have torpedoes, and they can be single launch, just like every British ship in the game, pretty much. You have 4 per side. Not quite as impressive as the light cruiser variant. The Minotaur, we're going to use an example because it is a tier 10 light cruiser for the Brits. The Minotaur gets 8 torpedoes on 2 launchers per side. This has 4 with 1 launcher. Both capable of doing single launching, but it's quite clear that the Goliath torpedoes are not something that you're going to incorporate in your basic play, whereas with the Minotaur is just a little bit bigger, sort of a light cruiser or a DD feeling. This is definitely a heavy cruiser that happens to have some purely defensive torpedoes. But sometimes, because of the concealment, if an enemy battleship's moving forward, they can move into the area that will eventually have the torpedoes meet up with them. So you can, in essence, stealth fire, but the scenario is very specific, and it's not quite as user-friendly as what the Minotaur has set up with it. Other things about the Goliath, it has a super British heel. This heel does, I think, on average 1100 per second over the course of its duration, which is a massive amount of healing. But I do have concerns about it, and I will go back to it. We also have the defensive British Hydro, and that's it. I can't swap in defensive AA. They carry that same trait that the light cruiser line has where it can't use it. Unlike the Minotaur with its just massive godlike AA power, this is much more pedestrian, and you definitely feel the pedestrian nature of the AA. So it's not something that I would bring to counter aircraft. It's more like something that can do it in a pinch, but it's not the primary role. The primary role of this is to deliver tons and tons of damage and have the ability to recover. That is pretty much the essence of the Goliath. Now, does it match that? Well, we're engaging this Worcester at a broadside, and we've done pretty good damage. 12 guns, 234. It's pretty impressive how heavy this AP can be. But one thing that I have to get used to, it's slightly different. You know, this is slightly different experience than Des Moines. It's slightly different from something like the Hindenburg or the Moskva or the Henri on AP. So you just have to figure out exactly how the arc is going to work for you. One time I located it too high, and oh, great, a Musashi. Well, this will be a great opportunity to see just how much damage it can tank. We take out the enemy Worcester because we know Musashi wants to shoot us. Perfectly broadside. Could not be a worse situation for us. And clearly I would like this to not happen, but it's already happened. We've taken it. It's done its damage. You're going to see the heal potential. It took all of our health away, other than like 8,000, and we're getting back probably 15 to 17,000 damage, which is nice. And we did send our torpedoes, but I think he's accelerating towards the friendlies over at Sea Point. We might be able to clip him with 1 torpedo, maybe 2. And we do have AP loaded. Just trying to kill him off. Obviously, tried to see, how good is the AP at the waterline? Clearly not enough pin to get in the Citadel, so we should have located it at the top of the hull. But, this is testing. We're trying to figure out exactly how much everything can do. And, yeah, target's dead. It was impressive how the Goliath was able to recover so much health from basically the worst possible situation. Most other heavy cruisers would be dead in that situation. The Goliath is sitting with 50% life, and that's pretty cool, but it's obviously not something you want to do regularly. Now there's an enemy chappie trying to capture B point, and he's broadside, so we're going to, of course, unload our AP. And just as before, the rudder is slow to react, but the turret traverse is incredibly fast. This is DD levels of speed for the turret traverse. AP ends up doing tons of damage. I noticed that he's trying to angle his ship so I can't get any more. And just preemptively, I switched to HE expecting that AP would just bounce off harmlessly. The shell arc, though, says otherwise. It did 8,200, but we've got 12 HE shells. It should easily finish this guy off. And honestly, we didn't take much damage at all. One of the things that I'm hoping from the Goliath and the British heavy cruiser line is that with good angling, it should be able to absorb a significant portion of incoming damage. Now, based on what I'm seeing, the turret traverse coupled with the hull setup, it absolutely can, but there is a caveat to all of that. Certain targets will be able to pin, and when they pin, it's going to stick in the ship. So if it sticks in the ship during certain targets, it's going to take more damage than if it was just going to allow it to pass by harmlessly. And that's my concern. How much of this damage can it recover consistently with its heal? Because this is it. I can't select anything else. I can't select radar. I can't select smoke. I can't select defensive AA. It doesn't have speed boost. It seemingly doesn't have British acceleration baked in. When I was setting up my modules, I could still use the acceleration module, and on the light cruisers and the DDs, they don't even have that as an option because it's baked in. So it's giving up a lot just to be able to heal itself, and because of that, I kind of feel like the heal needs to do more. I don't know the exact percentages of recovery, but I would really like it to recover a significant portion of HE and AP, because it's going to hit a lot of HE and AP. I mean, if you look at cruisers, it's probably 50-50 or 70-30 with the AP to HE ratio that it normally would get. It's not really a concern when I consider a cruiser that it's going to burn to the ground because it has a really fast damage control cooldown. That's what cruisers have. That's their benefit. So, overall, the Goliath, clearly the damage output is really impressive. It's probably too impressive at this point. Remember, this is the first game I've ever played in it. We're already up to 140,000 damage, and it just keeps going and going and going. But am I the utility cruiser that is so prevalent and competitive? No, I'm not. I can't force people to be spotted. I can't speed up to them to overtake the DD. My hydro is very defensive. My heal, very defensive. This is very much a defensive ship. It wants to defend an area and shoot anything that comes towards it, but trying to take territory, it doesn't have any tools for that whatsoever. So I just feel like, overall, it's a cool design. I just wish that it did that design better so it could justify its slot more. As it stands right now, you might justify pulling the Stalingrad or the Moskva over it for its tankability because of the fact that it has radar as well and high gun velocity. You'll notice that near the top end of this range, it's pretty floaty. It's very accurate, but it's pretty floaty at 16.8 kilometers. I don't think I could stand a range mod build with this. I think it would just end up being, just throw a bunch of shells at something and see what sticks. Whereas at 16.8, I can still accurately engage the target and predict their maneuvering. And they've definitely given this great gun accuracy. I mean, great gun accuracy. I feel almost legendary in accuracy. And this is the first game I've played in the Goliath. But it's really hard for me to justify this design over so many. doesn't have radar. Defensive. Extended hydro. It doesn't have the armor to weather certain types of storm. I mean, it has 25 millimeter giant bows and sterns. And if you ever get into a position where you're really stiff around a battleship, they're going to overmatch that like it's nothing, like it's paper. And they'll get into your citadel and they'll knock it out. So, you know, it needs to be really, really, really good at recovery to justify omitting every other consumable, and it's just not there yet. It's not quite there yet. So this enemy rune, active maneuvering, very easy to engage. I mean, the grouping is great. Everything about the guns is very impressive. And remember, 50 millimeters, that's not something you sleep on, because that is a very important breakpoint. That is the next big breakpoint, just as the 150, 152 breakpoint where you can get over 32 millimeters. If you can get up to 50 millimeters with your heavies, there's a lot of targets that just can't weather the same sort of storm. The Soviet high gun velocity Moskva and Stalingrad would melt to this, absolutely melt to this, and that's great for it. But if the Goliath is dealing with a battleship, you know, the battleship would just laugh at the 25 millimeter bow and stern, and because of its rudder shift being so stiff, a lot of times a well-played battleship can place their shells in a way that gets into that bow and stern. So overall, I feel like as the Goliath, its damage per minute is probably artificially too high, and its tank ability is probably a little bit too low if that's what they're trying to make it. If they're trying to make this something like the Conqueror for heavy cruisers, it is not there yet. It is not having the super recovery of the Conqueror, and I think that if this is the equipment that we have on this, I mean, pretty much it's basically a Conqueror. It has the British defensive hydro. That's the only thing that's different. Yeah, it needs to be a little bit better. So I think that Wargaming will take a look at this and see, you know, do we want this to be the identity? I think as of right now, its damage per minute's way too high to consider anything else right now. And, you know, if I'm playing this ship and I'm deciding which I would prefer, from my point of view, I would like tankability being a priority for a heavy cruiser line, at least one. And I think the Brits are the go-to. But for other players, they might look at it as something they don't really care about, and instead they just want to farm damage. And I can't really argue with that either. So we've done a good job helping our team, but they've dragged us away from what matters. So we're going to try to work our way back towards the targets. There's a couple DDs that we have to deal with, enemy Woosters, Neptune, and there's a Shokaku, but I'm not really going to catch the Shokaku. I don't have the speed, and I definitely don't have the gun range or gun velocity to get anywhere close to him. I'm hoping that maybe I'll run into a Neptune or the Gearing or the Yugamo. Those are the targets that I'm hoping to run into, and hopefully they're coming right towards me. And oh, hello there, Mr. Neptune. He seems to want to go for B point, but my strat perfectly counters it, so hopefully we can engage it and do massive, massive damage. We've got 12 guns, though, and God, the location, it's just so devastating. We barely missed actually landing. We only hit land 3 there, but these shells, the shell arc, very consistent, and I'm able to adjust my throttle enough that it's actually really difficult to just randomly hit this guy. And friendlies are doing some good damage from the other side of the map. I don't want to show too much side. This has 12 guns, and I'm really interested in killing him. And oh man, of course he's going to recover and do some more damage to me. He knocks out a torpedo too. Not that that really matters too much. I mean, it's very pedestrian. The guns are what matters, and we do eventually finish him off. And I take so much damage that I have to use one of the heals. And it would have been nice to have a little bit more recovery overall. You know, I know I feel like a broken record. I just want to have this line fulfill that identity. And I am concerned that it's a little too much damage with not enough mitigation. Everyone always wants to see the massive damage numbers when I've had more than enough time to rack up tons of damage. There's been times where I haven't fired at all, and we are easily over 200,000. Got a Gearing in the Yugamo. We're going to try and engage them. I do end up using my hydroacoustic. I don't have a duration extension. It's 3 minutes by default, which is nice. But we've got to try working down these guys without taking torpedoes. And it looks like we successfully avoided the torpedoes set. And we're just engaging the enemy gearing. If I was a better player, yeah, I would incorporate the back guns on the Yugamo, the front guns on the gearing. But that's split damage too, right? And we don't really have the time to do that. Plus the gearing unspotted. The aircraft carrier is doing an adequate job, but if you had a fighter to keep them spotted for a little bit longer, I would probably be able to do more damage, and maybe we would take this target out. Communicating that in the moment, though, to an aircraft carrier, if he's not thinking about doing that, it's kind of challenging. So I just have to go with what I see, and what I see is the Yugamo spotted, and we're going to engage him, and we're going to do tons and tons of damage to this guy. He should die with the next salvo easily, I think. And you wouldn't know that we have IFHE on this with the fires that are set. That's the nice thing about the Brits. You would never know that the Daring has IFHE with my build because fires are set at such a high rate. And of course, the gearing gets it. He sends another set. We're looking for the gap once again. We are engaging the gearing, and he is spotted, but we are unfortunately taking a broadside torpedo, and this is going to be our end. And the AA, not good enough to stop this. Really well played by the aircraft carrier. Didn't quite have the staying power to finish off the gearing. If we would have done that, we got 2 minutes left, probably would win the game. But as it stands, 4 kills, 232,000 damage. We recovered from nothing from a perfect broadside Musashi. A huge misplay by me, obviously lacking information. I would never have guessed that the Musashi would push up like that, but the recovery was there. I could see the potential. I'm just concerned. Damage per minute, really, really high. I already know that it's getting nerfed, I think by 2 seconds, and if you guys don't know, you will soon. It's one of the adjustments that they wanted to make to it. If they're bringing the damage per minute down, then you've got to consider bringing the recovery rate up. I mean, again, this is a ship with 0 utility. Its utility is its tankability, its survivability. It doesn't have radar. It doesn't have any of that. It has the ability to use IFHE. It doesn't even have that baked in, and recovery. That's its ability. And for that to be its full trait to compete with all the other cruisers, it better do that really, really good. And I have the same concerns that I always have on cruisers with heal. How much of your health can you use to turn it into recovery? Something like the Hindenburg that gets like 5 heal charges, you rarely get to use all of those because you just don't take the kind of damage that can be recovered as frequently on a heavy cruiser when compared to something like a battleship. Battleships and Conqueror, you can use his heal pretty much the whole game because everyone's firing HE at him, so he's burning constantly. But for a heavy cruiser, it's much more split, AP versus HE. Lexington's trying. He has the potential, but it's just not going to work out, man. He needed to have his attack rocket going right at the start, and he needed to accurately hit it. But, you know, we definitely contributed towards our team's chance to win the game, and near the end just didn't come out. But, man, the damage per minute, very, very high. Clearly an impressive ship. We only earned 1,700 base XP in a loss. We would have crushed it totally. And overall, Goliath, impressive. I just want to see it evolve. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to check out more of my content, you can click the most recent or the most relevant uploads. You could also choose to subscribe to my channel. We do daily World War II videos, first impression, how-to, news, and review related. My North American recruit invite is on the screen. You can take advantage of that. I stream at twitch.tv/Notser. Thank you, have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.